Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Celia.
Danish. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Really excited. I'm not even sure if I'm even recording. Let me see. We will start in a few minutes. So we are getting ready and I just need to check if I am recording or not. Let me see. Am I recording? Stop sharing. Recording here. Yes. Bonjour à tout le monde. Je suis très contente de voir beaucoup de collègues francophones. Et nous avons la interprétation francophone. Si vous voulez, vous pouvez utiliser, ici, en bas, utiliser le canal français pour l'interprétation. So I was just telling everyone while we are getting ready for our session and we start in 2-3 minutes. If you look below at the bottom of the Zoom, you will see the channel for the interpretation. So let's get ready for that. Spanish and French interpretation. If you have any problem, do please type in the chat box because we cannot hear from there.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Christopher. Welcome.
Hi, Cecilia. Hi, everyone.
I was just utilizing this slide to remember people that they can plug their Spanish or Francophone interpretation by using the feature, the new century feature interpretation. We all know about it now. And Ute and the colleague are helping us with the interpretation. And we start in 1 minute, I think. Exciting. Let me move back to my first slide. And I ask everyone to mute, or I can mute you as well. But if you're not speaking, try to keep the microphone unmuted. How do I do mute? Mute all, yes. No, but then I mute myself. Well, I will ask everyone kind collaboration in muting yourself because in our team, we are not the most quickest in managing logistics while speaking. And if we mute, this is for my team, if we are muting colleagues, let's remember that Aitana and Ute are the interpreter. So let's not mute Aitana and Ute. Otherwise, yeah.
Can you make me an admin, Cecilia, so I can maybe help you with the muting?
This is an excellent idea. Co-host.
Thank you.
And Andy, where are you? Andy, or alphabetical order, Alex. I will co-host you.
Already a co-host, thank you.
I know.
Great.
Yes, you. How do you?
I'll make Andy a co-host.
Oh, fantastic.
We can be your mute police.
Oh no, I can't. I'm sorry.
I can do. I have
you have enough co-hosts.
I'm making everyone co-host. Oh God. Right. Okay. I think we can get started this beautiful dance, Christopher.
Certainly, let's kick off. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Cecilia. And thank you especially to you and to the whole team for preparing this fantastic session. Of course, this is also Cecilia's last annual survey, so particularly significant. And we offer her a huge vote of thanks for all her fantastic work, not just this year, but over the last few years in working on the annual survey and all of the other brilliant pieces that she's done across the fields of technical assistance, knowledge management, and meal, and of course all of her great engagements with you at country level and regional level. And my second big thanks is to all of you, not just for being here today, but also for completing the annual survey this year and in previous years. And for those of you that haven't completed the annual survey this year, I really hope that next year you'll be able to, once you see the magnificent statistics and data that we've managed to generate from all of your inputs. I think for me, the annual survey really goes to the essence of what we're about as a network. It's so vital to our work, and most importantly, so vital to our understanding of your progress and your impact at regional and at country level and at subnational level. It brings us closer as a Secretariat in London to the work that you do at those levels. And that is the absolute essence of our network in terms of both the impact of what the work that you're doing, but also of sharing it together and learning from each other. So this session is all about sharing the highlights of the information that Cecilia's pulled together from what you've submitted, and also using that information, most importantly, to drive the future of the civil society network. And those of you that were part of, and I hope you all were, of the development of the CSN 3.0 strategy through the survey that we shared with you all, you'll be really happy to hear that we've used many of the outputs of this survey in the development of our CSN 3.0 strategy, making sure that the next 5 years of the CSN, as defined by the strategy, is shaped by the last year of the CSN and indeed previous years, to make sure that we are driving forward as a network in a way that reflects the needs, the priorities, and the work being done of all of you at country and regional level. And I think another fantastic thing about this session is it brings us all together, because this is where the work that you do at country level, at regional level, and also the work that we do at global level all comes together. So we can use the results that we're sharing today to foster our cohesion, our learning, and our impact together as a network. And I really hope that you're going to use the information that we share with you later today, and also with the full information pack that Cecilia will share with you after the session, as a method to learn and to grow collectively. And this is just a tiny little flavor of what's to come. There's much more information that'll be with you in the next few days. And as always, the Secretariat are here to support you with your development and your understanding of the work that we're about to share with you. So I'll stop there. Enjoy the session. It's a long one, but I think you'll also find that it's incredibly rich and fruitful. So please keep your attention with us and make sure that you engage. There are plenty of opportunities throughout the session for you to share your thoughts and reflections. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you all over the next couple of hours. Brilliant, and I will chat to you in about an hour's time when I get to my piece. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Cecilia.
Fantastic, thanks a lot, Christopher. Right, okay, so what do we have in the plate for you today? Our menu. You have already received the agenda. So without spending too much time, you will see that we have a chunk of a session on disclosing the data and the findings and the reflection, our interpretation of the data the alliances have been sharing with the annual survey. And then we will have time for open floor discussion. So please remain until that. And then who's really keen to hold more in-depth discussion, we can open breakout groups toward the end. So who has to go, or we understand it's a long session, you can stay until the discussion and feedback. But then after the break, after this, we will have also a breakout session. We know that the Eastern Central Africa group is keen to have a specific group to discuss the findings and how they relate to them. So specific groups for discussion are also available for you to join. To do that, I also I would like to ask you to please rename yourself in the Zoom. So with your name and next to it, if you can put the country, so we can recognize from which country you are calling from. And that I already saw fantastic that you introduce yourself in the chat box. Please continue introducing yourself, who you are, where you're calling from, alliance, member organizations, so we can track and reach each other. But use also the chat to post questions and feedback and comments throughout the sessions. Please to be really active in this. We will engage throughout the session, but also we will use your comments after in our report and including them in our reflection. So use the chat box if you don't have the time to interact. We will have also time to open the microphone. You have seen there is an interpretation feature for the ones, for who just joined, is on the bottom of the Zoom. So please click on the interpretation and select your channel if you need to do so. French and Spanish are available with our fantastic interpreters. And now, just for you also to keep in mind, we do have a quiz for you. Once in a while, we will put up a question and get from you your answers, find out what you think about. So please try to listen careful and engage in our quiz competition. And also, you will see throughout the session, there will be some slides where it are really action oriented. So we are proposing our action on way forward as a secretariat, but we will also open up to you to come back to us to say what is from the country, the region, global, the actions you think should be taken. So really it's for you, your time to share it with a microphone open or the chat box, actions oriented. Yes, data informing the actions. And as we said already, the breakout groups, keep in mind that a full report with the data will be shared. Is now Zoe is putting together all this information. So we will very soon put together, we'll send you a full report with all the data analysis for you to also share with other members of the Alliance. So all members of our network can have it, the full report, and the recording as well will also be shared. So don't worry about that. For today, we have just a flavor of the top areas we wanted to discuss with you. I think, so let's move on before we start what type of data we are looking at today and analysis and collected. So first of all, we are looking at data that can come from 30 countries. Mainly when you will see a graph that says last year's data, those are 30 countries that have answered the annual survey in 2020. So that is last year's data, 2020. Sometimes you will see that we run comparisons between years. So in this case, we are just looking at the same set of countries and alliances that have responded the annual survey every year. So we compare the trend, how this changed in the time. So that is how you would probably see in the graph as a MYC. So this is multi-year correspondence, only countries that have responded every year. And then sometimes you will see, for example, in number of membership, we aggregate the data throughout the last 5 years. And in this case, we only pick up the most recent information that was submitted by the country. So, for example, if a country answered the annual survey only in 2018 and not this year, we are utilizing the 2018. But if the country has answered in 2018 and 2020, we just utilize the data most updated. So this is just for you to keep in mind when we look at the different graphs. Everything has been captured, analyzed through the SUN labs that all alliances have access to. So you will see from the report, you will have hyperlink. So all SUN users, SUN labs users will be able to access the data and the graphs for their own country through the SUN labs and compare, for example, the global trend with your country specific data. So by clicking and accessing to your SUN labs, for the focal points of the SUN labs and the alliances, you can compare what is going on in your country and the global trend that is available in the report. So just make sure that you can really utilize the SUN labs for informing your planning and work. Now, I think I'm very honored and happy to have this section that is about achievements for the 2020. It's not very easy to compile all the achievements in very short time. My team has been very strict. I should be quick with my section, but there has been loads of achievements in 2020 and has been a really tough year, COVID connected, and plus all other challenges. But for the achievement, before we start and looking into some numbers and data, I just want to make sure it's clear what we are looking at. So in the annual survey, we asked the coordinators of the alliances on behalf of the member of the alliance to just flag out what have been the most important 3 or 4 most important achievements in 2020 for the alliance. So by no means this can cover all the greatness of the work done in 2020 of the alliance. Only 3 or 4 achievements is a small, but those are just like qualitative information. So we received loads of qualitative information from alliances on what have been the most tangible and memorable results from alliances in 2020. And this qualitative information will be for you available through impact slides, where that brings together all the qualitative information country by country, so you will be able to see what is going on in colleagues' countries. But let's keep in mind these are only the most memorable achievements and not everything that the Alliance has been doing. Having said that, we took this qualitative information and we categorized that. And probably we could even done more smart categories, but we, by categorizing this qualitative information, we have a sense of what alliances are proud of and how they are managing to get the change. So for example, if we look at the column, and don't worry if you cannot read the topics at the bottom of the categories. As you can see there, and from the full report, you can see the data in the detail in bigger, but as you can see, there are many categories of achievements, very diverse. What stands up on top, of course, are achievements that are connected to increase awareness. Because can you imagine, of course, this is a broad category and is very much can go to the citizen's perspective, to the policymaker, etc. And this is but it's very important that alliances are proud of the results on this, because this complements everything. This like contribute to all other achievements that have been possible. So next, to increase the awareness, we do have achievements. Alliances are very proud around governance, improved governance. And this has happened, if we look at the qualitative data, it had been around improved processes and tools in place to facilitate for a better governance, but as well, many alliances expanded at subnational level or improved the subnational coordination mechanism. So it's very much connected with also the growth in membership of the alliances. And this achievement of governance is also connected with improved capacity and skills. That is another outstanding achievement for alliances, most of the alliances. But improved capacity and skills is something that is connected with what alliances have been doing in fostering civil society member organization capacity in working around nutrition in a more impactful way. So toward members organization, definitely really important package of work and results. But this improved capacity and skills goes also outside the civil society organizations. If we look at the qualitative information, so plenty of results around strengthening capacity of health workers, for example, to especially working around the COVID new restrictions, but also capacity building for policymakers, journalists, champions, etc. So it goes beyond as well the core specific CSA's area, but also touch stakeholders that are for the entire architecture that works around nutrition. The other very important achievements we want to flag out is the new and revised legislation. This is connected to the civil society network outcome number 1. And we are really happy that while alliances are prioritizing this, they are also harvesting and getting very important results. And this is not only at national level, also at subnational level, fantastic results.
You're on mute, Cecilia.
Legislations. So new revised legislation is another top achievements alliances are very proud of. And then finally, if we want to spend a little more time, is about the multi-stakeholder platform is another areas and category of achievements where you can see the details of the information in the impact slides that you will be receiving. But seeing alliances proud and tangible results around the multi-stakeholder platform and is absolutely key, because multi-stakeholder platforms are enabling alliances for a greater impact. So they are harvesting results in there. They are also telling us that they are contributing to make this platform stronger. And this is at national level, but also very frequently at subnational level. So these are like the top achievements that comes from the categories of the qualitative information you shared with us. We just wanted to spend a moment to compare what happened with the same set of alliances in 2018 and 2020. Once again, don't worry if you cannot read the text below. You will see in the report, but just from the graphic, what you can see is looking at the same set of countries, what they reported in 2018 and 2020. What we see now is that there is an increased wide of categories and areas where alliances are obtaining results. This means that the same country is getting more in terms of sphere of influence of change. And this is coherent, as what you will see later on, with a progressive growth in membership, expansion at subnational level of these alliances. So alliances are becoming much, much more influential, and they are getting even more results on that side. And we can see it from all the fantastic information you shared in terms of qualitative information. So we didn't want to spend too much time on this, but what this was just to show you how the same countries are becoming more influential and more impactful.
Grand. I just actually sent you, I scanned in the 2 pages. I just emailed you now. Is that?
There is some, I do not know if somebody's talking to me. There is a question, or I can move on. Yes, I think so. Was just a mute to be muted. Okay, so let's pause for a moment and open up for a quiz. As we said, we have a very interactive moment. So I wanted to ask you all, you are logged from another device. I'm not sure I can. I think, Alex, would you be able to put up the poll? Because it says to me, it says that you are logged from another device.
I unfortunately can't I have the same issue, but I'll try to log in from our account. Why don't you continue and I'll log in from our account.
Or I will withdraw you as a co-host for a second, and then I will put up a poll. The poll, just for a moment. Let's see if I manage to do it. This is the first time we do try a poll, so be ready to answer. Oh no. Yes. And I think should be on. Can you see the poll?
You need to click on show or something.
It seems that it started.
Yeah, able to see.
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
I do not know. I don't see it, but I will count until up to 5. And if the interpreters can translate a question, please answer. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The question says, how many civil society alliances have reported as major achievement increased budget for nutrition? You feel free to, if you cannot answer the poll here on the Zoom, you can put it in the chat box. The first answer is 8 country alliances. The second answer is 15 alliances are reporting a major achievement on budget increase. The third answer is all. The fourth answer is none. Most of the people for now are answering around 15, very positive. 15 countries harvesting increased budget. Few countries around the 8, and then few countries are also answering none. Let's see what's the answer. The correct answer, let me share results. I'm sorry, guys, this is the first time. Okay. Stop sharing results. Okay, so the correct answer, if I manage to close the slide, the quiz, is 8 countries. 8 countries have reported through the annual survey that thanks to their work, they harvested and they gain increased budget allocation. These countries, if you are curious, you want to know which country are Cameroon, Kenya, Malawi, Mali, Kyrgyzstan, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, Nigeria. There might be more, but these are the ones that are answering through the annual survey. So if we think at increased budget, this is one of the core priority alliances have. Over 60% of the civil society alliances have chosen increased budget as a core priority for their work plan and strategy, where they are aiming toward as alliance. 60% of them. I think you can see my slide. Can you see my slide? Just to be sure what you're seeing. Yes,
we can,
okay.
Cecilia.
Thank you. So while 60% are putting the budget analysis as a priority, as a strategy, as you can see, the budget analysis is the outcome number 2. So it's the blue column. Only less than 30% of the alliances are really achieving yet in 2020 some memorable achievement on this. So this is just to flag it out. While we can see from the graph, the first outcome is the green one and is around improved nutrition and planning. So most of the achievements we discussed before are connected to the first outcome, and we see this reflected. Looking at this slide, and then we will move on into more qualitative information, is the second graph. We wanted to flag your attention because we discovered, and the beauty of the annual survey is also to discover new things. So we were comparing on the priority alliances were telling us in terms of theory of change. So just for you, for the one might not have it fresh, the theory of change of the 2.0 civil society network that is going to be different very soon because we are developing a new one soon. But the 2.0 theory of change had as a first outcome improved planning at national and subnational level. The second outcome, as we just discussed, is about increased budget for nutrition. And the third outcome is around accountability. And the fourth one is connected to civil society and civil society network governance and impact. A strong and stronger network and alliances. So if we just focus on the third outcome, what we discovered is that alliances, if we compare, and we are looking now at the second graph, the one in blue, we just discovered that compared to 2018, if we look at the same set of countries, we see more alliances now in 2020 ready to make accountability as a priority in their work plan as a strategy. So while it is not like a huge change, this is a very important change. And what we are seeing is, and probably our interpretation, but we are keen also to hear from you all, is having alliances now ready to bring the accountability as a top priority for the alliance is the result of the capacity of the alliance to be in those arenas to move toward accountability at national and subnational level. And it's also probably very much connected also from the learning that happened during the last 2 years that we saw happening from country to country, where alliances that were really bringing and strengthening accountability, and they were strong in accountability, really fostered understanding and share their experience, their tools, their examples through webinars, through documentation, etc. And this knowledge also really has been leveraged and brought to other countries. So this results in shifting civil society prioritization also on accountability is very much because their alliances are now positioned and feeling stronger to be able to harvest results in there. Probably also moments connected to the new years of action, but also because of the learning that is happening from country to country around this. Now, I probably will fly for the next slide, but we wanted to spend a moment to think at how COVID affected our work. And actually, we are here in the section about achievements. So we want to look at what the positives. So yes, all alliances had to change drastically their way of working internally and their plans, operation, etc. And that is definitely happen everywhere. But alliances are, and reporting to the annual survey, very proud of how they have been really juggling and managing throughout the challenge, the COVID. And what we can observe is they played a really key role at various levels. So if we want to think of the key role, just for some examples, we cannot make justice for everyone. You will see all the detailed information from the impact slides. But if we want to just take some glance and example from how alliances have been working with communities and families. For example, the alliance in Mozambique developed messages translated into 10 different languages, printed and supplied over almost 2,500 posters, and made radio spots, and reaching out over 1 million of citizens, also in the rural and urban areas. And they also delivered a training to under 60 community health workers and leaders to be able to deliver care during COVID. So training as well. Other important, for example, Pakistan has been advising on how to develop a nutrition balance packages for vulnerable families, which is absolutely key. And for example, in El Salvador, the Alliance delivered food packages, agriculture set for agriculture production, kits for agriculture production to over 400 families. So reaching communities, but also fostering better coordination among civil society organizations during COVID, most of the time virtually. So for example, in Kenya, what the Alliance told us, that they undertook much more frequent board meetings to discuss who was doing what and where, to program better alignment and coordination among members to tackle, to really be still active during COVID with a better coordination virtually. And also, for example, in Uganda, running loads of capacity building for members on advocacy to tackle, to discuss nutrition in a collaborative manner. So capacity building for members to advocate together around COVID. These are just few slides, but the last one we wanted to flag out is how impactful we have been during COVID time, and also in informing policy and strengthening multi-stakeholder platform. For example, in Vietnam, violations of breast milk substitute, BMS, breast milk substitute, has been identified and reported. And this happened during COVID, and it's continuing happening and will continue. So this role has been so much important. This achievement has been really important and will continue being important. In Indonesia, for example, the Civil Society Alliance held virtual meetings with government, designing with them how to respond to COVID, to really reach out the most vulnerable families. And as a result, the government expanded their coverage of the social protection scheme, reaching out, including the focus for around the COVID-19. And the Sierra Leone advocated for food security and nutrition to be mainstream in multi-sectorial platform. And this has been undertaken by and put in place. So I've been really running through, but as you can see, the impact of the work during the last year, even really complex, really reach out families up to subnational and national frameworks and mechanisms and policymakers and platforms. Last but not least, and then I will pass my microphone to my colleague, and I really apologize because I took more than the time I established, is about the regional achievements, which we really, so with the alliances at country level and subnational level and regional level is also another level that has really make the difference. So for example, for this year, just to take one for each region, in Asia, the Nutrition Can Wait campaign has been opportunity to bring all the 13 alliances of the region together, undertaking campaign at sub-national, national level. The campaign reached out even other regions, so it really link up, has been broader global level, but also targeted citizens in the communities, and at the same time as well policymakers. So it has been very diverse and has been a huge result and across the Asia, but also echo at the global level and other regions. In Latin America, for the first time, the regional group has piloted a new innovative virtual learning exchange, from the methodological until the action. So they develop actions plan on 2 major topics. And they connected with, they brought together within these exchanges over 200 individuals from the Latin America, and countries that are not even SUN countries are now interested in joining the group. Let's go to the East and Central Africa. Outstanding work around the development of the second budget analysis report and the launch of it toward the end of the year, that now is followed by many country campaigns to launch the regional report and the national analysis. And we have already observed how the first report has been crucial for really advocate for increased funding for countries, benchmarking countries to country. So it's a really important advocacy tool for civil society and all stakeholders to get more understanding on how resources are invested in the region. And finally, in WCA, they managed to meet together face-to-face, all of them, all the alliances at the early 2020, and they had undertook planning with strategic stakeholders like government focal point, donors, UN, and then throughout the year, they undertook plenty of webinars to foster COVID preparedness. So I'll stop here, but and pass my ball to Alex, who's doing another very important component.
Thanks a lot, Cecilia, and I hope you're all still with us after hearing these amazing achievements. And of course, well, first, congratulations for all these achievements. And of course, we know that these do not come without challenges, and that is how we build from failures and from lessons learned as well. So we'll cover a bit of these barriers and challenges in this next section. Next slide, please. So here are 2 graphs. One is on the barriers to ending malnutrition, the other one on the major challenges faced by civil society alliances in 2020. So I'm not sure you'll be able to read these graphs, but the idea here is to show that they are connected. So both the barriers and the challenges faced by CSAs are connected. For example, in barriers, you see that low funding accounts for over 40%, when CSAs report that lack of funding is, well, covers more than 75%. So this comes to the fact that where do we start really? How can we solve this challenge? Similarly, a barrier and challenge that is connected is one around multi-sectoral collaboration, which is found in both graphs, or the lack of policies and their implementation. So there are a lot of similarity between these graphs, and we're really keen to talk to you about how we can together overcome these challenges, and we'll talk about that in a few slides. Next one, please. And the next one. So I'll just cover 2 of the challenges that you have told us were major barriers for you in 2020. Next slide, please. The first one is around funding. So out of those CSAs that filled out the survey, 31, 22 said that they had some sort of funding in 2020. But out of those, only 38% counted on a budget above $50,000. So short-term, low amounts and flexibility of expenditure remains a real problem for civil society alliances. And next slide, please. And the second challenge that we've picked up on today is COVID-19, of course. Now, we think this figure.
Alex,
Yeah.
could you put the microphone a bit closer to? Yeah,
Sorry,
perfect. This is
sorry. I
perfect.
hope you did manage to
It's
to
perfect.
hear me.
Yeah.
So the second challenge after funding is the round of around COVID-19. Surprisingly, only a third of the respondents said that it disrupted their work as an alliance. We think that this figure should be it's probably increased, and this was not reflected in the survey because we're pretty sure that the pandemic has affected all of your work as civil society alliances. And the reason for this is that the multi-stakeholder platforms were less active, the government officials were less available because they had to focus on other priorities. There were delays in the implementation of your work plans and your projects. And overall, there was reduced member engagement and collaboration because you couldn't meet face to face. You had to focus on other priorities. There were a lot of limitations and barriers. And also this led to governance issues. So you can read here the two quotes from Kyrgyzstan and Kenya, who are just some of the, well, two of the alliances that have faced issues during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So here's where we like to pause for a bit and listen from you to overcome these challenges and to also scale up the achievements that have been made throughout last year. Here are just some of the suggestions from the Secretariat, but we're keen to hear your ideas. So we think it would be important to increase governance support to civil society alliances. Cecilia, can you come back to the next slide, please? Thank you. And that we can definitely do so by sharing experiences between countries, as we've been doing, and also providing some tools that we have in-house and that we're looking at reviewing. Another idea is around funding the regionalization agenda. Of course, continuing to work on country-to-country learning and collaboration, for example, on accountability, but also on champions engagement. And lastly, to further support you in your efforts, for example, in advocacy for more meaningful SUN country networks engagement. So to work more closely with other networks, the donor network, the business network at country level, which are some of the challenges that you have listed in your surveys. So we'll open the floor very quickly for maybe just one or two interventions, and others, please do type in the chat box any ideas that you have that we might be able to take forward to overcome the challenges that we have listed, that you have listed rather, and to scale up the achievements made. So I see one hand, so I'll take Pat, and then others, please do type in the chat box so that we can cover that in the notes and the follow-up. Pat, over to you.
Hi, yeah, I missed the first part of so I'm sorry, I'm coming in late. I suppose I think the scaling up nutrition movement is about scaling up nutrition interventions, and I don't think that we have developed a common dialogue within ourselves. What actual interventions do we wish to scale up? Like, I suppose particularly the Lancet essential nutrition actions. So I don't know, do we have a coherent policy structure that clearly it's going to be different in slightly different in different countries, but at the same time, if we're looking at the World Health Assembly indicators, if there's high rates of maternal anemia, poor, you know, like, I just don't think that we have that common framework for what are we actually trying to do together, which interventions, because ultimately what matters on the ground is what's implemented. And I just don't see that framework, where I don't think we're working together on that common policy framework that we would like to achieve, would be my point.
Thank you. Note taken, and I believe enhancing cross-learning to find out what works well, and then possibly scale it up that is something that we can definitely build
But
more.
I think, like, if I may say, we actually have the evidence in 2013 with the Lancet report, which interventions are evidence-based, which has also been reiterated again in the new report. So we actually have the evidence.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have to redo the, we know what works. We know what interventions work.
Okay, perfect. Thanks
Cecilia,
a lot.
can I respond briefly?
Yeah.
If that's all right. Thanks, and thanks, Pat, for the question. It's a very good one. I think, as you rightly say, a whole suite of interventions are acknowledged as being particularly effective in combating malnutrition issues. I think the key issue that you also flagged there is that the country context is key, and what the annual survey is all about is about reporting back on the progress of civil society alliances in different contexts in different countries across the world. And only a part of that is around implementation. A lot of what we talk about with civil society alliances is around advocacy. A lot of it is around sustainability of our network in terms of governance, in terms of development, in terms of accountability. So what you're referring to there is a very valid point. It's definitely something we need to continue to work on. And you'll see that in our new Civil Society Network 3.0 strategy, we do refer to the need to do better support for our civil society alliances in terms of implementation, and we're working towards that. But it's also really important to recognize that this annual survey, and this forum particularly, is a way of our alliances sharing what they're doing across a whole suite of different pieces of work, and only one of those is implementation. And obviously civil society plays a whole range of those different roles, and we're not necessarily specifically talking about those elements you're talking about today. Having said that, I think we continue to promote the Lancet interventions as obviously being critical. I think most of our civil society alliance members are very aware of those, and we continue to talk about them in the communications that we use. But yeah, it's important to put it in context, both in terms of the need to be country context specific, and also that implementation is only one element of what this network does, and the range of activities that we deliver on is enormous. I'm sure you'd also support me in saying that we obviously want to hear as much as possible from our country level members in all of our interactions in this session, because we want to hear as much as possible from them about the work that they're doing particularly.
Fantastic, thank you, Christopher. Is there any, let me double check the chat, if anyone had, I don't see other hands up. Let me see if in the chat there's comments. But for everyone, please do drop actions you at country level or regionally you think should be taken, or globally as well. So this is really the opportunity to put this on the pipeline for us to think about and put it on the radar. We will integrate these suggestions in the full report. So maybe we can move on, but just keep this as a moment for you to really share actions, and then we will come back to a new slides later on with the additional other actions for you, focusing on the next tranche of slides. But you can please still continue thinking on operational things that can be implemented for starting from now until the future, for the next month, on the challenges connected to the challenges. Should I pass the ball to Andy?
Hello,
Andy,
yes, hey, can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So yeah, I'll run over some slides on membership. So as we all know, and as you all know, membership is really vital part of the civil society alliances, and a multifaceted membership is key to ensure kind of an enriched and sustainable civil society alliance. So as you can see on the facts and figures slide that we have here now, from the latest annual survey, we have 4,212 member organizations across 44 countries, which is really exciting. And as you can see on the graph to the right, that's a huge growth over the last few years. So I think we started in 2014, where you really see kind of incremental and exponential growth even with our membership, which I think is really exciting and really shows the diversity of our members and our member organizations. So I think that's a really great way and a great indicator of where we're heading as a network as well. Cecilia, over to the next page. Thank you. So yeah, so as I said, the membership has continued to grow, which is really exciting. And the composition of that as well is really, really interesting. So the slide chart here kind of shows the various different organizations and institutions that represent our membership. So you have non-governmental organizations and community-based organizations, which make up 78.6% of our members, which is fantastic. That really shows the kind of country-led, country ownership of our membership and our network. INGOs, so international government organizations, make up 11% of our membership. We also have other organizations and so academia, social movements, consumer rights organizations make up the rest of our membership. And I think that's really exciting to show what a diverse composition we have to our membership base. I think it really represents the kind of diversified voice that we have as a civil society network when we talk about nutrition and scaling up nutrition on the global stage, as well as at the regional, national and subnational level as well. Cecilia, over to the next one. So with that in mind, hopefully I kind of ran through it a bit quick, but hopefully I'm going to ask you a quick question on the quiz. And I'm not sure, can we get, how do I get this up? The quiz, there we go. So hopefully you can all see the poll now. So the question is, what percentage of CSA membership do NGOs and community-based organizations, so non-governmental organizations and community-based organizations make up? So please put your answers in there. Is it A, 11%, B, 30.5%, C, 79%, or D, 98%? Looks like we've got some good answers. I'm glad nobody's picked 11%, which is perfect. That's what we don't want. Fantastic. Okay, so the polling is closed, but yeah, the majority of you got it right. So 79%, which is fantastic. And it really shows that country level, community level really does make up the majority of our composition of the network members. And I think that's what really shows and helps from a civil society perspective, how important it is for us to kind of raise the country level voice. Yeah, next slide. So I've added in here some barriers to membership engagement. We know there's obviously such a rich, diverse membership in our network, but also there is certainly barriers in terms of engaging our members. And some of the ones that have come out of the annual survey have been so lack of funding. So we know that funding has really restricted the membership engagement, and that's certainly something that we recognise from a global level, but also I think we see that across the board at all levels. And that was 60% in the annual survey came back with that. So that is certainly a big priority. The second one is limited capacity or time to engage. As we know, we're always super, super busy. And I think last year in particular, 2020 certainly has thrown in some really difficult challenges. So I think understanding our capacity and our members' capacity to engage really is important, and how we can engage in a smarter way to help improve the engagement rate for our members. The third one is a lack of understanding of the SUN Scaling Up Nutrition Civil Society Alliance, Civil Society Network role and potential benefits. So I think that this is down to our, varying maybe in communications and how we engage on a kind of communications and understanding, getting those basics for what it is that the Civil Society Network does and what you do as Civil Society Alliance, the incredible work that you do. I think, yeah, really shows. And I think we need to, how we can improve our communication on that to really show the benefits of what we do. And the final one is kind of other factors. So this is kind of looking at the logistical technical barriers. As we know, with COVID, we've certainly had to change our ways of working. Remote working is certainly a lot more prominent. And restrictions in travel have certainly affected the ways in which we engage with each other. So unclear membership mechanisms, so really thinking about how we bring on new members and those members, and what are the processes to involve new members, and Unclear, civil society organisations focus or priorities. So when we've got our members and their priorities and their focuses, what is it that that it's something kind of a bit unclear about that. So really thinking about that as a barrier for our engagement. Cecilia, over to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a really fantastic infographic that the wonderful Zoe has created. So this is really exciting, and it really shows when thinking about the diversity of our civil society members in our alliances across the board. So this represents the network as a whole from our annual survey respondents. And it really shows the kind of diversity in the work that we do. You know, this isn't, although it all links to food and nutrition and malnutrition, you really see the breadth of thematic focus that we have. Everything from, you know, women's empowerment to youth empowerment, breastfeeding, to wash, water, sanitation and hygiene, to agriculture, healthcare, access to healthcare, disaster resilience, refugees, conflicts and climate change and climate crisis. You know, these are really a really broad sense of what we do, and I think that's why it helps show how important the work that we do is as a civil society network, and how important it underpins not just the Sustainable Development Goal number 2, but also all of the Sustainable Development Goals. They really do tie into everything. So I think that's going to be an important point for us to, and I think a really proud thing that we really want to show to everybody what we do as a network. Yeah. So technical interventions of CSAs in 2020. So CSA's work plan priorities to bring CSO members to coordinate efforts on some of the following areas. These are what came out through the annual survey. So one of the top one was advocacy efforts are undertaken by over 80% of our civil society alliance, which is fantastic. And we know that having a strong advocacy and a strong voice for civil society and for those furthest left behind is vital. And I think that really is a really great representation of what the amazing work that you all do in advocating and really, yeah, advocating for nutrition within your respective countries, but how that transcends up to the regional and global level as well. Over 60% of the respondents in the annual survey undertook various levels of advocacy. So this comes from in the form of budget advocacy, parliamentary engagement, policy and legislation development or revision. So that really shows a really strong representation from the alliances on some really key areas to tackle our advocacy and tackle nutrition challenges. Over 50% of our CSAs engaged in community mobilization, behavioral change, communication, media engagement, and nutrition champion engagement. This is obviously a really key area. It does tie well into the advocacy work that we all do, but these are really some very tangible things that a lot of the civil society alliances are doing. And over 50% of the annual survey respondents put this in, which is fantastic. Another 50% of the CSA's work plan focus on youth empowerment, but less than 30% are specifically focused on the youth nutrition champions. So we know that we have some fantastic youth nutrition champions within our network that do incredible work, and we really see the power of having youth as part of our network and really helping to raise our voice on all levels of the network. And then 40% of respondents focus on social accountability mechanisms. And CSA governance efforts and capacity building are not captured here, but CSAs are flagging that those are core areas of intervention and achievements. So which were covered in the achievements section. Perfect. And I will now finish there. I think, Alex, I'm handing over to you.
Yes, thanks, Andy. It's me again. So I'm going to walk you through the governance section now, and we'll start with a little quiz, which I'll ask Cecilia to pop up. I cannot see the quiz because I'm logged into the same accounts, but oh yes, I can now. Excellent. So which of these statements is false? There's only one that's false. So the first one is the vast majority of CSAs have a coordinator and governing body in place. The second one is over 60% of CSAs have decentralized structures in place. The third, over 60% of CSAs have gender balance in the governing body structure. And the fourth one, over 80% of CSAs undertake subnational interventions. I see some people are still voting, so we'll give it a minute. The only one is false. All other three are correct. Right, I'll stop in 3, 2, 1. I see people are very indecisive, very diverging opinion on this one. So I will end the poll and share the results with you. So most of you, well, 41% responded to the third one, which is correct. So you will hear in my presentation now that unfortunately gender balance remains an issue, and we are only at 30% currently. So let's go through this section now so you can learn a bit more about the governance structures of civil society alliances. So currently 85% of the alliances that have responded to the survey have a coordinator in place, so that's great, and most of them are hired full-time. Almost all of the alliances have governing bodies in place, although not all of them have terms of reference, so that's still something to work on. 65% have decentralized structures, something that you seem to all be moving towards. Under 70% of hosted CSAs have a memorandum of understanding with their hosting organization. And as I mentioned, only 30% of the CSAs have gender balance in governing body structure. So this is still an area that needs improvement. Next slide, please. So here in this map, you will see the CSAs that have decentralized coordination structures. So in white, you see those that have decentralized at the regional level, in red at the district level, and in green at the province level. So there are lots of lessons learned to be shared between countries, but also between regions. As you can see in Africa, there are a lot of district level and regional level coordination. And in this map, you see that most of the CSAs work at this, well, deliver subnational interventions or undertake subnational interventions around a varied type of interventions, mostly around advocacy, capacity building, but also around national nutrition plans, inputs and monitoring, and then a lot of you, but perhaps at a lesser level, work on behavior change, on youth engagement, on multi-stakeholder partnership engagement, community mobilization, etc. So really varied type of approach. Next slide, please. And in this graph, you'll see that in general, there are improvements in most of the CSA governance structures. But as I said, women and youth representation, so we added youth here, it is not currently shown in our graphics, but that's something we will add. So this graphic only shows the women representation in the governing body, and it is still currently low and remains a critical priority to ensure that women and girls' voices are heard, equally represented, listened to, and acted upon. Next slide, please. So the number of women in governing body actually decreased in the last 4 years, but we have also seen some efforts in 2020. For example, 45% of CSAs reported that they now have equal opportunity processes in place. and 73 ensure gender balance in decision making at both national and subnational levels. So there are really encouraging efforts that have been made and put in place last year, which is really encouraging. And next slide, please. And I think it was my last. Yeah, over to you, Cecilia.
Excellent, thank you. So let's continue a little bit on the governance because it's our enabler to really make a greater impact with our full constituency. So here are some of the key processes in place in the alliances. So what we learn from the annual survey responses is that 90% of the alliances have in place transparent processes for new membership, which is fantastic, but just about 60% have a strategy for members engagement. So which is so like a really organized and well thought strategy to foster engagement of the members that are part of the alliance. Now, the second point is looking into the annual General Members Assembly, which is a critical moment for boosting transparency, accountability, collaboration. As you all know, is a really important and actually also really happy moment for having all members together. Due to COVID, most likely, less than 60% of the alliances managed to hold the annual General Members Assembly in 2020, which is a bit of a problem. But even a little bit more worrisome is the percentage of alliances that has held a renewal process within the last 3 years of the governing body, because less than 50% of the alliances has undertaken a renewal process or reported to us that they had in place a renewal process of the governing body. As you know, we really encourage have this at least once every 3 years as a minimum to ensure representations. Over 50% of the alliances capture civil society members' contribution to nutrition intervention in a diverse way. Very frequently, the annual General Member Assembly is the moment where this progress is captured. So, of course, not having been able to hold annual General Member Assembly had an impact also on the capacity to capture CSOs members' contribution to nutrition achievements and intervention. And then on the last one, for what concern to processes, or we categorize as a process broadly, is that less than 50% of the alliances have in place conflict of interest policy and conflict resolution processes, and which is actually big beast, something that we have been working on and still have to continue work on as a network, all of us together, because it's something really hard to tackle, but really important in terms of governance. Now, if you are not too tired, we still have another couple of set of governance related features that we think are quite important to really make a solid representative body. And this is around the tools in place. Among those elements, we saw that over 90% of the alliances have in place an updated list of members, which is great. So they know who they are, where they are, what they do. Quite an important feature to have. And 83% of the civil society have terms of preference for the alliance or constitution, which is fantastic, which is really important. But only 60% of the alliances have an updated civil society strategy. Of course, strategies as well have to update it yearly or biannually, depending on the needs. So only 60% of the alliances have in place an updated strategy for the alliance, for all members, to be shared with all members. Around 50 to 60% of the alliances have in place a work plan, and they are tracking progress We think this is very much the case when there are specific projects, for example, the pool fund or specific project for which there is a work plan. Of course, the Alliance have multiple projects, multiple organizations, multiple work streams. So having in place an M&E framework for the full Alliance, that is something that would help in thinking of the different interventions that are taking place. And only 30% of the Alliance have in place M&E frameworks and now sustainability plan, which the last one is a little bit of improvement compared to the previous annual survey, but still the percentage is really is low, while still give us the chance to see that there are alliances that have this in place from which we can learn from and perhaps boost country to country support. One last slide for me is focusing on the BMS, the breast milk substitute code and regulation, which is absolutely key element we keep track or we look at within the CSN. So we keep trying to ask alliances if they monitor if members are aware and complying about BMS. The question is a bit hard for alliances that have over 300 members. Of course, how do they monitor how they are aware complying? There are different ways. Anyhow, 61% of the alliances are able and they can count on they are sure that members are aware and complying with the BMS because they probably have in place tools to make this, to assess this. And then from the other side, and for the second question we asked around the BMS or the breast milk substitute code is if the members are aware of where to find the regulation on BMS. So again, 65% for this. What we want to just flag out that is compared to the 2018, there is a slight improvement in terms of civil society alliances member that have awareness of a BMS regulations. So for the first question, there is a slight improvement if we compare to the same set of countries that responded in 2018 and 2020. But for what concern the second question on where to find information about the regulation, there is a decrease. Now, finally, we really want this to become 100%. So definitely there will be some work to do on this. And then we wanted to bring it to the attention that this is also complemented with the level of alliances that have in place code of conflict of interest, which is still low. But the same alliances that are reporting that their awareness is not strong, they do have a conflict of interest, and then and engage with the private sector. So just these slides about the governance are really connected to the governance index that has been developed by the civil society MEAL working group. So this is an internal tool for civil society alliances and the global secretariat, our secretariat, to self-assess how well we are doing in terms of governance, and is complemented with other two tools, inclusion index and sustainability index. Each index have many indicators that have been chosen by alliances, and is more an internal tool to self-assess how well each country alliance is doing and where to prioritize to improve the scoring. Of course, it is an index, so it has to be complemented with the supporting and manuals, etc. But if we look at the different score harvest or got from 2020, that is the first time we launched the tool, so some scoring might not be perfect, but at least we are looking at across globally. The governance level is managed. So there is a level that is not sustainable and really at the red line. But for now, we are at the level of managed. So we cannot say that we are enabling, which is the latest level, the 5th level, but we are at the managed level. So we'll see how we will do next year. And as I said, all alliances can see their own scoring through the SUN Labs by clicking on the links you will find in the full report. And that's it. So I think I'm over to Alex. Back to you.
Was it you, Alex, or was it me?
Oh,
Yeah,
Andy,
it's
sorry, Andy, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so based on kind of the governance and membership slides that you've just seen, which are really, really exciting, and hopefully you found them really interesting in terms of kind of incredible work. I appreciate we're a little bit over time, I think. So what I'll do is I'll try and go through this quickly. But what I encourage you to do is either raise your hand and we'll select you to talk, or please do write it in the chat box. So if we can't get to your question now, then we can answer it later. And I think that's a really great way for, in the interest of time, please do throw all your questions and comments into the chat box, and then we can respond to them when we have more time. But really just looking at kind of the response and kind of some of the actions from the governance and membership slides that we've just discussed. Really just to hear your thoughts. So I'll open we've got some suggested here. I don't want to run through them now just for the interest of time for anybody to mention and raise their hand. So please do raise your hand if you have any thoughts or questions. Otherwise, please add into the chat box. John, yeah, hey, I see your hands up. Over to you.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for the presentation. So I'm from Kenya, and what we've experienced in terms of membership is the issues are about attrition rate. You know, members are joining, then after 1 year, they are tired, attending meetings. The lethargy that comes in terms of sustaining meetings and members being active, you know. And one thing is that the question is, what is the benefit of joining SUN? How do you ensure that we really pitch something so good that an organization from the structures, from the country director or from the project manager will say, we should join SUN because it's a great movement. So I think that's one area that is really a problem in terms of sustaining membership and ensuring that attrition rates are not that much. And sometimes also issues about the secretariat ensuring that members who leave the organization and join another organization, whoever takes over, you know, in terms of communication, being active and participation of different meetings. So it's an area that we really need to discuss. And maybe how do we empower the different CSN or the alliances to ensure that they really market themselves as a possible opportunity for greater prospects. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. I think that's a really, really important point. And I think we saw that come out in the annual survey, some of those that being a really key barrier to membership in terms of the attrition rates and how do we really communicate, you know, the benefits of being part of SUN. And certainly I think that's something that this annual survey and your question there really does highlight. It's an area that we need to focus on going forward and to ensure that we really showcase the benefits, you know, being part of SUN and in fantastic movement and in particular civil network. That's a really important point. Thank you, John. I'm just looking in the chat box. Let's have a quick look. Pat, I think your question here.
I see Edgar's hands up. And John, if you're happy, I have taken notes for your action as a country level as well, especially, but also globally, we can assist by a country level to really focus on making the value for the SUN for members and having a strategy for their engagement as an area for better, like for thoughts and enhance working. And
Fantastic.
I'll pass the ball to Edgar.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy, and thank you so much, Cecilia. So for me, mine is not really a question, but I think it's just a contribution into terms of looking at what is the benefit of having the civil society And having discussed with quite a number of our members, I think they see the sense of being part and parcel of the CS, the civil society, and the benefits. But the question that usually arises is, for how long will you be around? And I think it calls for the issue of being consistent and also being able to have kind of a long-term kind of engagement, because in many of these civil societies, you are here for like 1 year, then you disappear again for like another maybe 6 or 8 months. So that consistency in engagement is not really something that is being seen, and this also affects the impact in terms of what you're trying to work on. And this is the difficulty that many individual civil society organizations or members actually face with that. A case in example is, for example, the civil society in Kenya, whereby we were very active from the point when we started in 2013. And then in 2015, we kind of fizzled out. And now we are very active in 2019 to 2021. And then probably in the next 2 years, we might fizzle out. So you find that members are not able to consistently engage with us. So I think this is something that probably we need also to have conversations on at a higher level, to see how then do we sustain the gains, how then do we sustain the engagement. And this is something that will give members confidence, because once members are confident that you are here, you are going to continuously work with them, so that even if members transition from one organization to the other, it is you can always carry on with this work. So I think that is, for me, is one thing that is affecting members being part of the civil society. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Edgar. That's a really important point. And I think, yeah, that sustained engagement is really key. And I think that's something that, yeah, like you flag, I think that's certainly something that from a global level, we can really discuss how we can ensure that sustained engagement and ensure sustainability in that area. That's a really, really helpful point. Thank you. Matthew, just in the interest of time. So Matthews, I think your hand's up as well.
Yes, Andy. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, perfect.
Great. I think, yeah, interesting conversation, especially around membership, how to sustain, the engagement and the like. I think for me, the submission that I have is also, I think we might have to think about how we sustain membership at country level, as seen from the results from the annual survey, that, just poor financing affects membership. So is it possible for us to also just think about having a strategy of engagement, even in the limited, resources that the scaling up nutrition, the CSAs would have? I think that would be very, very helpful, because, most of the times when CSAs have no money, there'll be very little engagement. By the time they get some money, they try to engage members, and maybe some of them would not be interested simply because they have seen the inconsistencies. But how can we create a strategy that would help us engage our members at country level, just to ensure that, even with the challenges that we might face, we would still, sustain that level of engagement that is needed just to maintain, the membership that we've labored so much to have. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matthews. I think that's really insightful, actually, because obviously we saw that, like you said, that the low kind of the membership engagement, but also it was flagged about the funding and the financing. So that's a really insightful point that you made about linking them together, how really the funding and the financing has the consequence of that really does kind of affect the membership engagement. So I think that's really, really, really helpful to know. And I think certainly something that we can think about. Thank you so much for sharing. In terms of time, should I move on? Okay, cool. So if you have any more questions, please just throw them into the chat box, and then we can answer them in due course, like once it's finished. So yeah, thanks, Ken. Over to who's next?
I think it's me, Andy.
Over to you, Christopher. Cheers.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. And it's been a brilliant discussion so far. So thanks to all of you for your contributions. And I hope this has been an interesting presentation for you thus far. I'm conscious we're a little bit behind time, so I'm going to cut my presentation down pretty significantly. We're going to do a quick quiz, which will take about 30 seconds. So hopefully that's going to pop up on your screen right now. And that question is going to be, how many CSAs are currently engaging with all 3 other SUN networks? That's the UN network, the SUN Business Network, and the SUN Donor Network, and with their focal points. So how many of our CSAs are engaging with all 4 of those stakeholders? Can see these votes pouring in. The answers are less than 40%, 60%, all of our CSAs, or none of our CSAs. So I'll give you another 15 seconds for that. Oh, we've ended it already. That's fine. So the answer is, no problem at all. The answer is less than 40%. So about half of you got that right. And you all successfully identified that it definitely wasn't all CSAs, and nor was it no CSAs. So we'll flick to the next slide. And I think I'm just going to do this slide, and then the final slide is a bit of a summary. So this is a critical element, particularly as we move into the SUN Movement 3.0, because that's so much more about country leadership, and also about making sure that we collaborate better, both at global and at national level, across all of the different stakeholder groups that we have. So here, what the annual survey is telling us is that less than 60% of those of you that responded are engaging with the SUN Business Network or the SUN Donor Network at country level. The rate is a little bit better for the UN network engagement, which I think makes sense because there are more UN networks at national level. So about 90% of you that have responded to the survey are engaging with the focal point or with the UN network. And as we just talked about in the quiz, less than 40%, so 34% of all respondents are engaging with all 3 networks and the focal point. So about a third of the people that are responding to our survey, which obviously we would love to see increase significantly. And some of the reasons identified for that is that in some cases, obviously, there is no national network for the SUN Business Network or for the donor network particularly. There's also, where those networks do exist at national level, we've identified that there is sometimes a lack of communication between the networks. And the final point is that sometimes there is just a bit of a lack of functionality in that other network. So even where we have a very high functioning CSA and we are communicating with the other network at national level, it's sometimes difficult to have meaningful engagement because that network platform is not functioning as well as it might. Cecilia, can I ask you to skip forward a few slides? We're going to skip over the next 4 or so and go to, I think, the slide's entitled SUN Internetwork and MSP Engagement, just in the interest of time. Yeah, that's the one. Fantastic. So the key point here is, given that we know now that only 34% of our CSAs are engaging with all of the other networks at country level, is how we can improve that. And what we're hearing from you in the survey is that there are a few things that we could do to help with this. The first is obviously capacity building, both for our civil society alliances themselves, but also for the other network platforms at national level to make sure that they are better engaged. Of course, there is potential to increase communication amongst stakeholders, and we can do that through various different pieces, making sure that our network platforms and our civil society alliances are committed to that cross-network engagement, and also that there are resources available to make sure that that happens. And of course, most importantly, possibly having a clear work plan and accountability, making sure that that cross-network engagement is built into civil society alliance work plans, and that the leadership of those civil society alliances understand how important it is, and that conflict of interest, particularly when dealing with the SUN Business Network, is a priority for our civil society alliances. So those are the things that we've identified that we could do in order to improve that inter-network engagement. Moving on slightly to think about engagement with multi-stakeholder platforms rather than with specific individual constituency groups. Again, some very specific barriers have come forward in terms of why our civil society alliances and our members at national and sub-national level are not necessarily engaging as much as they want to with multi-stakeholder platforms. Again, the most recurrent problem that turns up is the funding. So about a quarter of you said that lack of funding, and therefore by extension lack of capacity, was behind the inability to engage meaningfully with multi-stakeholder platforms. The second most common reason that was flagged was power dynamics. So this is something that we've talked a lot about in the SUN 3.0 strategy to try and address, to make sure that civil society, which is often marginalized in these platforms because of lack of funding, because of lack of influence, because of lack of contact with government and other key stakeholders, is supported by the SUN focal point or the SUN country coordinator and enabled to participate in those multi-stakeholder platforms. Absolutely critical. And the third main reason that's identified here is that a potential low understanding of the role of a civil society alliance at country level, or possibly more generally of the role of SUN overall. So that's again something that we need to work more on at country level. And then we've obviously, of course, also thought about what mechanisms and solutions we can put in place to make sure that civil society alliances and civil society network members can engage better with your multi-stakeholder platforms in your countries. And again, similar sort of solutions come through as we had on inter-network collaboration. So making sure that roles and responsibilities are clear within the MSP, driving towards better knowledge management and sharing practices, improving communication with external stakeholders, which of course is an obvious point in multi-stakeholder platforms, and of course, again, funding availability. So those 4 solutions were shared by about 1/10 of all of our respondents. So quite an even split across those different answers. And I think that demonstrates that we need to have a real broad approach in terms of making sure that we galvanize both our members to, and all of you by extension, to engage in those MSPs, but also that we need to work with MSPs and those other stakeholder groups to make sure that it's a two-way street across the different solutions that we have to offer. Can we just flick to the next slide? Thank you, Cecilia. So like Andy, I'm not going to run through these because we are a bit behind time, but there are some ideas here about what we can do both nationally, subnationally, regionally, and globally to try and make sure that we galvanize better engagement from you, our members, with the different networks across the SUN movement and with multi-stakeholder platforms. And there are slightly different tactics and strategies that we can employ depending on what sort of stakeholder we are trying to engage with, and those are listed there. I would love to hear any other ideas that any of you on the call might have. So much like in the previous presentation from Andy, great to hear any quick suggestions that you have. We'll leave a couple of minutes for that before we move on, again, in the interest of time. And do bear in mind, as with all the presentations, that we will be sharing it with you afterwards, and there's plenty of time for feedback. We can make edits to this presentation so that we can share it with all of you and make sure it's as useful as it possibly can be. So I'm going to take a couple of points and questions. Kawa, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Kawa from South Sudan. One of the things that I have seen in our engagement with the other networks and the MSP is that the SUN CSA is the only active network in South Sudan, and the burden on us has become really increasing. So the expectations from other networks that we are the lead, we lead everything related to SUN, we need to engage the business community, academic network, even at the Ministry of Health where the focal point sits, it's all burden on us. And sometimes it looks like the SUN CSA, the more they're active, the more responsibility, the more burden. While we are struggling to structure ourselves to make sure we succeed, we raise funds, and every fund that we raise, we have to chip into how strengthen other networks and make them to the benefit of the wider SUN movement. So I would say that the more the SUN CSA is active, the more responsibility, the more burden. Thank you.
Thanks, Kawa. Absolutely. And that's something that we are absolutely hearing from various different respondents in our annual survey. The fact that there's a huge burden on civil society, particularly because we have the broadest reach and the largest number of alliances of all networks across the movement. So we absolutely hear that. And I think one of the core priorities of the SUN 3.0 strategy is to make sure that that burden is better shared and that there is better coordination both globally and nationally across all the networks, and that the funding better reflects that distribution of the burden as it currently stands, which certainly it doesn't do at the moment. That's a really useful reflection. Thanks so much for sharing it with us. We've probably got time for one more, if anyone else would like to chip in. Emily?
Yeah, hi, Emily here. You really hit a big issue in terms of internetwork collaboration, and I think if we have an effective one, it will also address some of the issues, even fundraising. You see, the CSOs are actually doer or implementer. That's the reason why we always need resources. But what's happening is if and when we will have this collaboration or I don't know how many countries have SUN core group, which is supposed to have representative from the different networks, from business, from the private, from the UN, the government, and the civil society and the academe. But I still believe that they are still operating in silos. They have their own agenda and they have their own programs. So I don't know to what extent that at the country level, we also have, aside from having a national nutrition plan, for example, also have a scaling up nutrition plan wherein really the different networks are working together towards common goals, because I think it's not happening yet. Because if it happens, then resources will be provided via the donor, while the SUN civil society and alliances would be able to do what are targeted, and then the government can provide policies and enabling environment, etc. So I thought, I don't know how idealistic am I, but in if ever that would happen, I think it will resolve a lot of issues that we are discussing now. Yeah.
Thanks, Emily. That's very, very true, and we totally recognise that. I think it's in the new SUN 3.0 strategy, you might have seen there's greater emphasis placed on the role of the focal point, which is going to be rebranded as country coordinator, to make sure that multi-stakeholder platforms are bringing in all those different elements and that the balance is better. And as Danish has put in the chat box, it really is the role of the focal point or country coordinator to make sure that the MSP is better reflective of the different stakeholder groups involved. So obviously we're very hopeful that the funding and the effort accordingly will be changed to reflect those points that you've just said. But we're very conscious that that's an issue, and we'll continue to seek to help you at country level to improve that situation. And of course, working with the global support system at global level to make sure that all networks are behind that objective. I'm very conscious that we are quite significantly behind time. So Matthews, I know you've got your hand up. Would it be possible for you to put your point into the chat box, just in the interest of time, and we can respond to it there? And I will pass over now to Zoe, I think, to finish off our presentation.
Yes, thanks, Christopher. Right, so very quickly, this is the end bit. Celia, can we have the next slide? Brilliant. Okay, so also in the annual survey, we asked all CSAs about their priorities for this year and looking to the future. On the next slide here, you can see some of the top answers, including strengthening CSA governance, advocacy, both national and subnational, and continuing to mobilise funds for nutrition. These were just the most popular answers across the survey, but of course they will differ from CSA to CSA and region to region. So we've also pulled out here some of the top priorities for each region. For instance, in Asia, they are talking about looking at MSP engagement, ESA looking to mobilise funds, LAC looking to focus even more on their legislation changes, and WCA looking to improve social accountability mechanisms, just for examples. Then on the next slide, this is the graph looking at CSA and regional priorities. As we've said in this webinar, you can have a closer look at all these graphs in the full report. But just for now, you can see that the green bar, which is pretty high for each region, is looking at governance strengthening. And I think there's a blue bar, which is also pretty high for national level advocacy. Right, and then next slide, please. Okay, so we also looked at technical assistance needs for CSAs, and the key areas which came out of the survey are fundraising, M&E, and governance assistance. We also saw more requests for support in areas of BMS, comms and media, as well as budget advocacy. And then on the next slide, you can see all the areas in this graph. And again, you can look at the full report when it's released to see a bit more closely. And that goes for all the graphs and maps that we've shown here today. Next slide. Okay, so finally, of course, what would be the point of this survey if we don't learn from it? So amongst other things, at the Secretariat, we plan to continue and grow the country-to-country TA initiative this year, which has already proven to be a great success. And that hopefully will help us help with these TA requests that we've seen from the annual survey, as well as we have done with every other section of the survey results. So I think that's it on the annual survey results, unless anyone has anything they want to say on this last point about priorities and TA assistance. But back to you, Cecilia.
Yes, if anyone want to suggest actions and comments on this specific chunk that is really looking into the priority of alliances and technical assistance, which was the really last part of the very long annual survey. I see, Kawa, I see your hand up. I don't know if it's from before or if it's for now. Feel free to open your microphone if otherwise, Edgar.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think one of the things that also we need also to add as a secretariat is to also be organizing donor roundtable discussions. Because I feel that once we have these donor roundtable discussions, then they also get to know some of the highlights of our priorities as civil society networks. But also we get to also understand what their priorities are in terms of advocacy and other issues. But also we get to have that kind of networking with the various donors that we can also follow up at country level. So I feel that this roundtable discussion is something that is really critical for us to have also our issues, but also for us to have that relationship with the various donors. Thank you.
Fantastic. So that would be at all levels, global, regional, and country level.
Yes, at all levels, because if it starts at global level, then it's easier for us to see how best we can cascade the same at regional level, then again at country level.
Excellent, thank you. Danish.
Thank you. Actually, as a regional network, we plan to engage more with the regional bodies like SUN, SARC, and AFDB. Sorry, AFD, not AFDB, ADB. As there are some opportunities to secure some funding from these bodies, especially the Asian Development Bank. So we might require some technical assistance from CSN Secretariat as well, as we are facing some capacity issues. So yeah, so we will be requiring your support on this. Thank you.
Fantastic. So we are including these actions and suggestions in the report. You will see in the full report there will be expertise available also in the different countries. So definitely the Secretariat will be there to support, but more and more also really bringing the expert that we have within the network to boost up and support each other. Any more questions or any other actions specifically for this section? After, let me see the hands. Nope, for now. Okay, just please feel free to add it in the chat box and let me see what we have for you now. We have the thank you, first of all, but it's not finished, so please do not drop out immediately. I'll tell you what is going to happen after. And this is, so if you have more action, suggestions, feedback, please do reach us out. You have our individual contacts, but you can also utilize our email. Please also have a look at the full report we will be sending in the next couple of days. That will also include some of these elements that we discussed today, and also have a look at the impact slides that will be shared with you all. This is really a resource for you to input when you are really also making the case for the SUN CSN or for your alliance, etc. And you will find all the links to the SUN Labs, so you can see compare the global trend with your country or regional specific trends. So this is for now a sort of highlights of the very long information, very detailed information you shared with us with the annual survey. So first of all, the thank you is to you all to sending that data. The more accurate you send it, the better it is for our analysis, and it's simply like a pleasure to read about you and try to sort out with you what would be the best way forward globally, regionally. I want to appreciate the work of the team, because we have been analyzing the data much more in the detail within our team and planning our strategy as a secretariat, and also utilizing for our 3.0 strategy. And the team has been really looking into each single angle. For today, we only have been able to disclose some of the elements we discovered from you. So many thanks to my secretariat team, but also for you all for being a part of this. So what we are gonna do now actually is to take really few minutes break, but we would really want to come to give you the time to oxygenate your brain, because there was loads of data information here. And if you still want to come back for a quick question and answer, a 10 minutes troubleshoot on some of the elements you really wanted to focus and get it really on the pipeline, on the plate, for everyone to discuss in plenary just after this song, beautiful song from Namibia. And then after our 10 minutes plenary, so feel free to join this. But if you can stay longer after the plenary, I think there will be the Csas working group will have a breakout groups for specific discussions. And if you want to have a breakout group to go more in depth, please do write to me in the chat box, only to me, and I can set up a breakout group for you. The breakout group will be a moment to discuss the global trends and see how they are relating to your specific country or region, if you have a regional group. So after that, we will break out in groups and give you the time to discuss this data. So we'll be sharing with you the slides if you need it. Do you have any questions? Otherwise, I'll just connect the audio, and then we can meet right after, let's say in 5 minutes. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Have a nice oxygenation.
Thanks, Cecilia.
Do is take good care of my health. All I wanna do is take good care of my health. Nutrition, promoting good nutrition. Jipa o my be good. What I'm trying to say is, when you move it, do your best to be ahead of your game. It's for you and your kids. Nutrition. Akanara taibama, take. Akanara taibama, take. We get him to that one, somebody 8 days see. Somebody 8 days see. One day I can a healthy lifestyle, let her Chip said I can't we get to the seed of the quarter. Somebody 8 days see. Nutrition. Promoting good nutrition, Jipa o my be good. What I'm trying to say is, when you move it, do your best to be ahead of your game. It's for you and your kids. Nutrition. You only get one life, so you better live it right. Instead of always beer and wine, just drink your water and be fine. It's the
just people dying on a date. But really young ones, man, even our babies. It's really simple things that really help. Like mother milk and your veggies. They help our kids to grow up and to flourish. So can we just nourish? Hey moms, let us breastfeed cause it's sexy. And dads, let us be there to support it. A baby's first 1,000 days that really count. Nutrition, nutrition. Promoting good nutrition. Jipao mahihi be good. What I'm trying to say is, do your best to be ahead of your game. It's for you and your kids. Nutrition, nutrition. Nutrition, 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 nutrition.
Mwameme likwatana, wamasista likwatana, inokala tonobira, kese fimboa, nuwome ya ukale huli healthy, cause your health is key. Nuwome ya ukale huli healthy, doli unima denyabawa.
Nutrition, nutrition, promoting good nutrition, jipawa mahihi mbikure. What I'm trying to say is, do your best to be ahead of your game. It's for you and your kids. Nutrition, nutrition. Nutrition, 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 nutrition. Promoting good nutrition, jipawa mahihi mbikure. What I'm trying to say is, do your best to be ahead of your game. It's for you and your kids. Nutrition, nutrition. Nutrition, 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 nutrition.
Take care of your life, take care of yourself, take care of your health, take care of your family's health.
Fantastic. Right, we are back. And I would really want to, I know that has been a very long call. So just before we go into breakout groups, I'd love to hear if there is any feedback and comment. We are gonna take note for all the comments we have in the chat box, but actions oriented, but also burning comments we would like to put for the plenary for everyone to feedback, or secretariat as well. So I will take a couple of hands if I see them coming up. So feel free if you want to comment or go more deeper in if you have questions, specific questions for some of the data we shared. This is the time. So please do open your microphone straight away. I don't see hands up.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hi,
This
hey,
is Jane
Jane.
from
I can
Nigeria.
recognize your voice. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia, and your team at the SUN CSN Secretariat. I think that the data is very clear and honestly very helpful in understanding some of the things that the CSA should be doing and working towards, and also how we should see ourselves working with other networks. So I think that this is a brilliant idea, and we'll be moving forward with the data that you have shared with us at country level. And also I want to ask, I think one of the surprising data that you shared is that on gender. I'm surprised that we have less than 40% CSAs having gender equality. And but I want to find out, maybe we need to ask what the reasons are. Is this intentional, or is it something, gender balance, is this something that we need to intentionally work on? Or is it something that countries are not taking seriously? I just want to know what exactly, what is the reason for this data? I think we need to ask questions. Thank you.
I think this is an excellent point, and I'd love really to see hands up for anyone who would like to react to it. From my and I see John's hands is coming up, and I will put you really on the right, or perhaps let me give you the ball now, and then maybe I will also complement later on. So John?
Yes, thank you, Cecilia. So just to tie up what Jane has mentioned, I saw in the presentation we had about 90% of CSA members having a constitution, and maybe it is a radical thought, but my thinking is, constitutions should spell out something that connotates or supports inclusion of, involvement of women in either leadership, say for, being part of the board, and or involvement in terms of certain other coordinational roles within the CSA, so that, well, it gives them the opportunity, rather than just having more of an affirmation, or allowing certain slots that these are exclusively for women, and that will elevate this conversation in terms of gender and participation and the equality bit of it. Thank you.
This is an excellent point, John. I think that would be actually great to see it there specifically addressed. What struck my attention is, for example, between the stats, if you see here in the column on the right, you would see that most of the alliances are deliberately investing on gender balance in decision making. Perhaps not for the CSA governing body, but in other structures, etc. So I think in a way, alliances are thriving and trying to push toward more gender from a programmatic point of view, and also advocacy, etc. But then the results still lack into be, let's say, mirrored into the CSA's governing national or subnational level. So definitely having in place some constitutional regulation and process for that would be probably of help. When we ask, we did put out in the SUN Labs community of practice the stats, and we have been asking why these numbers. It is one of the answers we received, for example, is that very often who's sitting on the governing body of the alliances are the directors of organizations, CSOs, and very often CSOs directors are men, or like, so I think there is complication on that sense. So I think this is something that has to be really discussed within the governing, what would be the best strategy to do that. Sometimes alliances might have the name of the director as a representative officially, but then are the women or the director delegates women to civil society decision-making moments, events, etc. So on one side, also better track if this percentage is the real snapshot of how is this happening, and if it is really putting in place some measures. So I think it might vary from country to country. And I think in a way it's very important also to not just think at the governing body at national level for the alliances that have structure at subnational level, think at how this is also reflected at subnational level. And then and really for now, we have not really collected information on youth involvement as well. But from the next year, we will be doing more more detail through the annual survey. And then also remember, we do have in place this really, really fantastic tool that have been developed by many civil society members, that are the governance, sustainability, inclusion indexes, that are not for monitoring or policing, are just tools for the alliances to think on how to better integrate youth or women in the processes. So do use that as well. But I think John's suggestion is really excellent. And any other feedback and comments you would like to flag out?
I think just the gender balance again. I suppose there's a gender balance in the governance structure, but I suppose there's a gender balance in policy and policy prioritization. So I think, our point will always come back to the ground and field level, and what are we actually implementing? And we know that policies, in nutrition policies for women, are vastly underfunded. There's an under prioritization. So I think, I think we just need to, develop the narrative. I don't think we have a strong narrative around gender and nutrition, and concentrate on the policies rather than the management structures, perhaps.
Thank you, Pat, for reiterating. Definitely, that's a priority for alliances at all levels. Is there any other striking comment or feedback or question you would like to ask for the benefit of everyone to discuss with everyone? Otherwise, I will. I'll count till 3, and feel free to open the microphone. 1, 2. I think it might be, many of you might be tired, but I think the breakout group, for who's joining the breakout group, will be an opportunity to just reflect on regional or specific countries. So for now, what I've seen, we will have 2 groups, one for the countries in Eastern Central Africa, and the other one is Francophone countries. And now, please do give me just one moment to create 2 breakout groups. So for Asian colleagues, Danish will organize or will think for a discussion, because also the timing is very late. Same thing for the Latin America. Regional discussion will happen in the monthly meetings call. So you will also have the time to look at the detailed reports in meantime. So, and focusing on the actions. So feel free. We don't have a room for you, but I am now creating an ESA room for colleagues that are keen to have this discussion that will be facilitated by John and Matthews. And then for the WCA colleagues, Francophone speaking, that can join that rooms. So I think I am sharing on somewhere. You can choose which room you want to go. And then after that, once you have chosen the room that is for you, so I think you should be seeing a message that invites you to join one of the 2. If you are not joining a breakout group, I just want to thank you all for being with us today. Really appreciated your participation, your engagement, your feedback, and then welcome to please continue doing and sharing it in the future. And we'll be sharing the reports and then the recording with everyone later at a later end. So my chance to say goodbye to you from the Secretariat, because I will go to a different organization in a couple of weeks, but I will still be around learning from you and following your work throughout. So we will not be far away. So thank you all. And then I might join one of the 2 groups.
It's also very important.
And you should be able to click choose one of the rooms. Otherwise, I will assign you to directly. And for the interpreter, Aitana and Ute, many thanks for your help. I think you can will be very you will be must be very, very tired. So please feel free to go back to your own business. And then every group will have 20 minutes, and I will be sharing with you the slides and facilitated by our regional coordinators. And then let me see.
I don't seem to be able to join the WCA group.
You're not? Okay, I'm moving automatic by hand everyone now. So you want to join the WCA?
Yeah.
Okay. Just one moment. I'm not sure, Justin, which group are you going to? So for all the others that are not in a group yet, please do let me know if you want to join one of these 2 groups, or otherwise, where is you? Where? There are a few colleagues that I'm not sure which group you would like to join, so please do let me know in the chat box, so I will be able to move you there But to all the others that are not joining a group, because we don't have Asia or country-specific groups, I'm sending my best regards and thank you for joining this session, and we will be definitely in touch as a secretariat in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Any Asia colleagues on the call, please do. You don't have to stick around now. We'll be having the breakout group version in the next Asia call, and same with the Latin America. So for anybody kind of not in those groups now, we'll be having those calls at the monthly meeting.